Some feelings don't fade the way you expect them to. You try to move forward, you tell yourself it's time to let go, yet their presence remains in your heart in a way you can't explain. It's not always about the person, it's about what that connection awakened within you, something deeper, something that hasn't completed its purpose yet. Because not everything that stays is meant to hold you back. Sometimes it's there to show you what you still need to understand. You may feel conflicted. Part of you wants closure, while another part keeps returning to the same thoughts. This tension isn't random. It carries meaning. It reflects something unfinished within your heart that is asking for clarity, not escape. Allah does not allow something to stay within you without reason. Every feeling has a role. Every attachment carries a lesson. And sometimes what you're trying to release is actually guiding you toward a truth you haven't fully seen yet. So pause for a moment and reflect, because what you're holding on to might be what's trying to teach you. The feeling is exposing what you truly value. A feeling that refuses to fade is often pointing to something deeper within you. It is not only about the person or the situation, it is about what your heart chose to hold as important. Through this attachment, you begin to see what you invested your emotions in, what you hoped for, and what you believed would bring you peace. Many times, a person only discovers their true values when they are tested. When everything is easy, it is simple to say what matters. But when something becomes difficult to let go of, it reveals what the heart has given weight to. It shows what you were willing to hold on to, even when it brought discomfort or uncertainty. This awareness is not meant to make you feel regret. It is meant to give you clarity. When you recognize what you value, you begin to understand your own heart better. You see where your focus was placed and why it became difficult to release. This understanding is important because it allows you to make better choices moving forward. Sometimes the heart holds on to an idea rather than the reality. It may be the idea of what could have been, the hope of what might change, or the belief that something would turn into what you wanted. These ideas can become strong enough to keep the feeling alive even when the situation itself has changed. Recognizing this difference helps you separate what is real from what was imagined. A believer understands that not everything the heart values is meant to remain. Some attachments exist to teach, not to stay. They reveal what matters to you, but they also guide you to refine those priorities. What once seemed essential may begin to feel less important when you look at it with clarity. This process also shows you how much you are capable of feeling. It reflects the depth of your care, your sincerity, and your ability to invest emotionally. These are not weaknesses. They are qualities that need to be directed in the right way. When they are placed correctly, they bring peace. When they are placed incorrectly, they bring confusion. By understanding what you truly value, you gain control over where your heart is directed. You are no longer led only by emotion. You begin to think about whether what you are holding onto aligns with your faith, your growth, and your long-term well-being. This reflection creates balance. It is also a reminder that the heart should not attach itself to something that leads it away from what is right. When a feeling creates constant disturbance, it becomes necessary to question its place. Not every strong emotion deserves to be followed. Some are meant to be understood and then released. Through this experience, you begin to adjust your priorities. You learn to value what brings stability rather than what creates uncertainty. You recognize the importance of peace, respect, and clarity over intensity and attachment. This change does not happen instantly, but it develops through reflection and awareness. Another important aspect is how this realization affects your decisions. When you understand what you value, you become more intentional. You choose what aligns with your principles rather than what simply feels strong in the moment. This prevents you from repeating the same patterns. Your relationship with Allah also becomes part of this understanding. You begin to ask whether what you are holding on to brings you closer to Him or distances you. This question helps you evaluate your attachment from a different perspective. It adds depth to your reflection and guides your choices. There is also a sense of responsibility that comes with this awareness. Once you see what you value, you have the ability to redirect it. You can choose to place your focus on what benefits you and what aligns with your purpose. This choice is part of your growth. Patience is required. Letting go of something that held value is not always immediate. It takes time to adjust your perspective and your emotions. But with consistent reflection, the intensity begins to reduce and clarity becomes stronger. This feeling is not only about what you are holding onto, it is about what it is revealing within you. It shows you your priorities, your expectations, and your emotional patterns. With this understanding, you are no longer reacting blindly. You are moving with awareness. And when a person reaches this level of clarity, the heart becomes more guided. It learns to value what is right, not just what feels strong. It learns to choose what brings peace, not just what holds attention. And that is where real growth begins. You are being shown that not everything you want is right for you. A believer comes to understand that the heart can desire something strongly, yet that desire does not always mean it is good. Feelings can be intense, convincing, and difficult to ignore. They can make something seem right simply because it feels right. But what feels right is not always what is written to bring you peace. This is where guidance becomes important. Allah, in His wisdom, allows you to feel, but He also shows you through circumstances whether that feeling is leading you toward what is good or away from it. You may want something to work, you may hope it will change, and you may hold on to the idea that it will become what you need, yet reality continues to show you something different. When something is right for you, it does not constantly leave you in confusion. It does not require you to ignore your values or silence your concerns. What is right aligns with your peace, your clarity, and your sense of stability. When that alignment is missing, it becomes a sign that what you want may not be what is best for you. It can be difficult to accept this. The heart may resist letting go because it has already invested meaning and emotion. It may continue to search for reasons to hold on, even when those reasons are not strong. This resistance is natural, but it is also part of the lesson. You are being shown that desire alone is not enough to make something right. A believer learns to separate between wanting something and needing something. You may want a certain outcome, but what you need is what brings you closer to Allah and supports your well-being. When these two are not the same, it becomes necessary to choose what is beneficial over what is desired. This understanding does not come from a single moment. It develops through repeated experiences. You see patterns, you notice outcomes, and you begin to recognize that what you wanted did not bring the peace you expected. This realization builds gradually, but once it becomes clear, it changes how you approach future decisions. There is also mercy in being shown this early. Holding on to something that is not right for you can lead to deeper difficulty later. By revealing the truth now, Allah is protecting you from greater harm. What feels like a loss may actually be a form of care, guiding you away from something that would not have been good for you in the long term. Your perspective begins to change as you reflect on this. You no longer assume that every strong feeling should be followed. You begin to question whether it aligns with your values, your faith, and your sense of peace. This reflection brings balance to your decisions and prevents you from being led only by emotion. It also teaches you humility. You realize that your understanding is limited and that Allah's knowledge is complete. What you see is only part of the picture. What Allah sees includes what is hidden, what is coming, and what could have been. Trusting this allows you to accept outcomes that do not match your expectations. Another important aspect is how this shapes your patience. Instead of rushing to hold on to something simply because you want it, you begin to wait for what is clearly right. You become more willing to accept delay if it means receiving something better. This patience strengthens your character and your trust. You also become more aware of your boundaries. When something does not align with what is right, you begin to step back rather than pushing forward. This decision is not easy, but it becomes necessary. It protects your heart from being tied to something that cannot give it what it needs. This lesson brings a sense of relief. You are no longer chasing outcomes that do not bring peace. You are no longer holding on to something that creates constant tension. You begin to feel lighter because you are aligning your choices with what is beneficial rather than what is only desired. Your trust in Allah grows stronger through this process. You begin to see that when something is not meant for you, it becomes difficult to hold on to. And when something is meant for you, it finds its way with clarity and ease. This understanding replaces frustration with acceptance. This experience teaches you that not everything you want is right for you. It shows you that true goodness is not defined by how strongly you feel, but by how well it aligns with your peace, your values, and your connection with Allah. And when you accept this, you are no longer guided only by desire. You are guided by understanding. You begin to choose what is right, even when it is difficult, knowing that what Allah chooses for you will always be better than what you choose for yourself. Your emotions are being refined, not removed. A believer begins to realize that strong feelings are not always taken away immediately. At times they are shaped and directed so they serve a better purpose. What you feel may remain, but the way you understand it starts to change. This is part of refinement. It is a process that takes something intense and brings it into balance. Emotions can feel overwhelming. They may lead to overthinking, attachment, or confusion. The heart may hold on tightly, searching for answers or trying to make sense of what is happening. Over time, with reflection and awareness, that intensity begins to settle. The feeling is still there, but it is no longer controlling every thought or decision. This refinement allows you to see your emotions with clarity. You begin to understand where they come from and what they are connected to. You recognize whether they are based on reality or expectation. This understanding reduces confusion and brings a sense of calm to what once felt heavy. A believer learns that emotions are not the problem. They are part of how the heart responds. The challenge is in how they are managed. When emotions are left without guidance, they can lead to decisions that are not balanced. When they are refined, they become a source of insight rather than pressure. Through this process, your reactions begin to change. You do not respond as quickly or as intensely as before. You take time to think, to reflect, and to consider what is right. This pause creates space between feeling and action. It allows you to choose your response rather than being driven by it. There is also a change in how you view the situation. What once felt like something you needed to hold on to begins to feel different. You start to question whether it truly aligns with your well-being. This question is without doubt. It is clarity developing over time. Your expectations also begin to adjust. You may have hoped for a certain outcome, but as your understanding grows, you see things more realistically. You begin to accept what is in front of you rather than holding on to what you imagined. This acceptance reduces resistance and allows your heart to move with greater ease. Another important part of refinement is learning balance. You do not suppress your feelings and you do not allow them to control you. You acknowledge them, understand them, and then guide them. This balance brings stability. It allows you to remain calm even when emotions are present. Your connection with Allah strengthens during this process. You begin to turn to Him not only for answers but for understanding. Through prayer and reflection, you find reassurance. You realize that what you are experiencing is not without purpose. It is part of your growth. You also become more aware of your limits. You understand that not every feeling needs to be acted upon. Some are meant to be understood and then released. This awareness prevents unnecessary actions that may lead to regret. There is a gradual shift in focus as well. Instead of concentrating only on the person or the situation, you begin to focus on your own development. You invest in your growth, your ibadat, and your responsibilities. This shift reduces the space that the emotion once occupied. The intensity begins to soften. The feeling does not disappear suddenly. It becomes lighter. It loses its urgency. What once demanded your attention becomes something you can observe without being overwhelmed. This process also prepares you for the future. When emotions are refined, you are better able to handle new experiences. You carry the lesson with you, allowing you to approach situations with more awareness and balance. It is important to remain patient during this time. Refinement is not immediate. It develops gradually as your understanding grows. Trying to rush it can create more confusion. allowing it to unfold naturally brings better results. What you are experiencing is not simply a feeling that refuses to leave. It is a process that is shaping how you think, how you respond, and how you understand yourself. It is teaching you to manage your emotions with clarity rather than being controlled by them. And when this refinement takes place, the heart becomes more stable. It feels, but it is not overwhelming. It understands and it acts with balance. This is how emotions serve you rather than control you. You are learning patience in a personal way. Patience is often spoken about, but it is not fully understood until it is experienced in a situation that touches your heart deeply. When you are dealing with feelings that don't leave easily, you begin to learn patience in a way that is personal, not theoretical. It is no longer just advice you hear. It becomes something you live through. You may find yourself wanting quick answers. You want clarity, closure, or a clear direction so your mind can settle. But those answers don't always come when you expect them. This delay can feel uncomfortable because the heart is searching for resolution. Yet within that waiting, something important is being built. Patience in the situation is not about doing nothing. It is about remaining steady while you move forward. You continue your responsibilities, your ibadat, your daily life. Even when part of your heart is unsettled, this balance is not easy, but it strengthens you. It teaches you that you can continue without having everything resolved. There is also a difference between waiting with frustration and waiting with trust. Frustration makes the process heavier. It creates tension and keeps the mind restless. Trust, on the other hand, brings calmness. When you believe that Allah knows what you do not, the waiting becomes easier to carry. It does not remove the feeling completely, but it changes how you experience it. You begin to understand that not every situation needs an immediate conclusion. Some things require time for understanding to develop. Without that time, the lesson may not be clear. By allowing things to unfold, you give yourself the chance to see them properly. This kind of patience also teaches you control. Not control over others or outcomes, but control over your reactions. When emotions are strong, the natural response is to act quickly, to seek relief, or to force an answer. Patience teaches you to pause. It gives you the ability to think before acting, to reflect before deciding. Another important part of this process is acceptance. Patience is closely connected to accepting what you cannot change. When you accept that certain things are beyond your control, the struggle becomes lighter. You stop resisting what is already in front of you, and that reduces the pressure on your heart. You may also notice that your perspective begins to change during this time. What once felt urgent may start to feel less intense. The need for immediate answers begins to soften. You become more comfortable with not knowing everything at once. This comfort is a sign that patience is developing within you. Your connection with Allah plays a central role here. Through prayer and dua, you find a place to release what you are carrying. You are reminded that you are not alone in what you are going through. This awareness strengthens your ability to wait with trust rather than anxiety. Patience also protects you from making decisions you might regret. Acting in moments of strong emotion can lead to choices that are not balanced. By allowing time to pass, you give yourself the opportunity to see things clearly. This clarity leads to better decisions. There is also growth in how you handle uncertainty. You begin to realize that life will not always be clear. There will be moments where answers are delayed and outcomes are unknown. Patience teaches you to live within that uncertainty without losing your stability. You may also start to appreciate the small moments of calm that appear within this process. Even if the situation is not fully resolved, there are times when your heart feels lighter. These moments remind you that peace is still possible, even while you are waiting. Another lesson within this patience is understanding timing. What you want now may not be right for you at this moment. There may be things that need to change within you or around you before clarity comes. Trusting this timing allows you to wait without feeling stuck. This experience also builds resilience. Each moment you choose to remain patient strengthens your ability to handle future challenges. You become less reactive and more grounded. You learn that difficulty does not have to control you. It is important to remember that patience is not about ignoring your feelings. It is about managing them in a way that keeps you balanced. You acknowledge what you feel, but you do not let it take over your actions or decisions. You begin to see the benefit of this process. What once felt like a delay begins to feel like preparation. You understand things more clearly, and your responses become more thoughtful. The waiting was not empty. It had a purpose. Learning patience in a personal way changes how you move through life. It teaches you to remain steady when things are unclear, to trust when answers are delayed, and to continue forward without losing your balance. And when patience becomes part of who you are, you no longer feel rushed by emotions or pressured by uncertainty. You move with calmness, knowing that what is meant to be clear will become clear at the right time, and what is meant for you will not miss you. You are being taught where your control ends. One of the most difficult lessons for the heart is accepting that not everything is within your control. You can care deeply, think constantly, and wish for a certain outcome, yet the result may still move in a direction you did not choose. This is where understanding begins. It becomes clear that effort belongs to you, but outcomes belong to Allah. The heart holds on because it believes that with enough patience, attention, or effort, things will change. You may feel that if you say the right words, act the right way, or wait long enough, the situation will become what you hoped for. But life begins to show you that there is a limit to what you can influence. You cannot control another person's heart, their decisions, or their direction. This realization is not meant to weaken you. It is meant to free you. When you accept where your control ends, you stop carrying a weight that was never yours to carry. You stop trying to manage what is outside your reach, and your focus returns to what you can actually do, your intentions, your actions, and your character. There is a difference between effort and control. Effort is making sincere attempts within your ability. Control is trying to guarantee an outcome. When these two are mixed, frustration grows. You may feel that your effort is not enough because the result is not what you expected. But when you separate them, clarity comes. You understand that your responsibility is to act with sincerity, not to control what follows. This lesson also brings awareness to how much energy is spent on things beyond your influence. Thoughts, worries, and repeated questions about what someone else feels or will do can take a significant part of your attention. When you recognize that these are not within your control, you begin to redirect that energy towards something beneficial. You also start to see that holding on tightly does not change reality. It may increase attachment, but it does not create alignment. What is meant to come will come without being forced, and what is not meant to stay will not remain, no matter how strongly it is held. Trust becomes an important part of this understanding. Accepting the limits of your control requires believing that Allah's plan is greater than your own understanding. It means trusting that what unfolds, even when it is not what you wanted, carries wisdom that you may not fully see yet. This trust does not remove effort. You continue to do what is right. You continue to make decisions with care, but your heart is no longer tied to forcing a specific result. This balance reduces pressure and allows you to move forward with calmness. Another important part of this lesson is learning to release the need for constant answers. Not everything can be explained immediately. Some outcomes become clear only with time. When you accept this, the urge to control every detail begins to fade. You may also notice a change in how you respond to uncertainty. Instead of trying to fix everything quickly, you become more patient. You allow situations to unfold without rushing to control them. This patience brings stability to your thoughts and actions. Your perspective on relationships also begins to change. You understand that connection requires mutual willingness. It cannot be sustained by one person's effort alone. Recognizing this helps you step back from situations that are not balanced. There is also a sense of peace that develops when you stop trying to control what is beyond you. The constant tension of what if begins to reduce. Your mind becomes clearer because it is no longer occupied with trying to manage everything. This does not mean you stop caring. It means you care in a way that is balanced. You give your attention where it is needed, but you do not allow it to become overwhelming. You remain aware, but not consumed. This understanding strengthens your ability to make decisions. You become more focused on what aligns with your values rather than what you are trying to force into place. This clarity leads to choices that bring long-term peace. You also begin to appreciate the wisdom behind what you cannot control. Situations that once felt frustrating may later reveal their purpose. You may see how being unable to control something protected you from an outcome that would not have been good for you. This lesson shapes how you approach future challenges. You become less reactive and more thoughtful. You understand your role and accept its limits. This balance keeps you steady even when circumstances are uncertain. Knowing where your control ends allows you to live with greater ease. You no longer carry responsibilities that do not belong to you. You focus on your effort, your growth, and your connection with Allah. And when a person reaches this understanding, the heart becomes lighter. It no longer struggles to manage everything. It trusts, it acts, and it accepts, knowing that what is written will unfold in the way it is meant to. Your heart is being trained to accept reality. One of the most challenging lessons the heart faces is accepting things as they are, not as it wished they would be. When feelings are strong, it becomes easy to hold on to an ideal version of a situation, a version where everything aligns with what you hoped for. But life does not always follow that version. Reality presents itself in its own form, and accepting it requires strength. The heart may resist. It may hold on to possibilities, imagine different outcomes, and search for signs that things will change. This resistance is natural, especially when there has been emotional investment. The heart tries to protect itself from disappointment by holding on to hope. Even when the reality is becoming clear, clarity begins to appear. Not through force, but through repeated experience. You start to see patterns, responses, and outcomes that consistently show you what the situation truly is. This clarity is not meant to hurt you. It is meant to guide you toward acceptance. Acceptance does not mean you agree with everything that has happened. It does not mean you feel no pain. It means you acknowledge the truth of what is in front of you without trying to reshape it into something it is not. This acknowledgement brings a different kind of calm, a calm that comes from understanding rather than from control. Your heart begins to adjust to this understanding. What once felt confusing becomes clearer. What once felt overwhelming becomes manageable. The emotional intensity reduces because you are no longer holding on to a version of reality that does not exist. This process also teaches you honesty with yourself. You begin to recognize where your expectations did not match the situation. You see where hope may have extended beyond what was actually present. This honesty is important because it allows you to align your thoughts with reality. There is also growth in how you respond. Instead of reacting based on what you wish to be true, you start responding based on what is actually there. This change improves your decisions. It prevents you from holding on to something that cannot give you what you need. Your trust in Allah plays a central role here. Accepting reality becomes easier when you believe that what has unfolded is part of a greater plan. You understand that even if something did not turn out as you hoped, it still carries purpose. This belief softens the difficulty of acceptance. Another important part of this lesson is letting go of illusions. Sometimes the heart creates a version of someone or something that is not fully accurate. It focuses on certain aspects while ignoring others. Accepting reality means seeing the full picture, not just the parts that supported your hope. This awareness brings balance. You no longer view the situation from one side. You see both what was present and what was missing. This balanced view reduces emotional confusion and brings clarity. You may also notice that your reactions become calmer. You are no longer trying to prove something or hold on to something that is not stable. You begin to move forward with understanding rather than resistance. This calmness reflects inner strength. Acceptance also creates space. When you stop holding on to what is not aligned with reality, you create room for something new. This space is important because it allows your life to move forward without being tied to something that cannot continue in the way you wanted. There is also a sense of relief that comes with acceptance. The constant effort of trying to make something work begins to fade. You are no longer carrying that pressure. Your mind becomes clearer and your heart feels lighter. This does not happen instantly. It is a gradual process. There may be moments where old thoughts return or where the heart feels uncertain again. But with time, these moments become less intense and less frequent. The overall direction moves toward clarity and peace. Your understanding of yourself also grows during this time. You learn how you respond to situations, what you expect, and how you handle emotional challenges. This self-awareness becomes valuable in future experiences. You also begin to appreciate the difference between reality and expectation. This understanding helps you approach future situations with more balance. You become less likely to create unrealistic expectations and more focused on what is actually present. Training your heart to accept reality is not about removing feeling. It is about guiding feelings with understanding. It is about aligning your emotions with what is true rather than what is imagined. And when a person reaches this level of acceptance, the heart becomes steady. It no longer struggles against what is clear. It moves forward with awareness, trusting that what is meant for them will come in a way that does not require them to ignore reality, to hold on to it. The attachment softens when the lesson settles. A heart does not always release something by force. Trying to push a feeling away can often make it return with more intensity. What truly brings relief is understanding. When the lesson behind the experience becomes clear, the attachment begins to lose its weight naturally. It is not something you have to fight anymore. It becomes something you outgrow. The attachment may feel strong, almost fixed. Thoughts return repeatedly. Emotions feel heavy, and the mind keeps searching for reasons, answers, or closure. It can feel like something that will not change. But this intensity is not permanent. It exists because the heart is still trying to understand what it has gone through. As clarity increases, the nature of the feeling begins to change. You start to see the situation with a more balanced view. You understand what was present and what was missing. You recognize what you learned and what you need to carry forward. This understanding reduces confusion, and with less confusion, the attachment becomes lighter. It is important to notice that this process is not sudden. It happens gradually. The same thought that once disturbed you may still appear, but it no longer affects you in the same way. The same memory may come to mind, but it does not carry the same emotional weight. This is a sign that the lesson is settling within you. There is also a change in how you respond internally. You are no longer questioning everything in the same way. The need for constant answers begins to fade. You become more comfortable with what you know, and you accept what remains unclear. This acceptance reduces the hold that the attachment once had. Your focus begins to shift as well. Instead of looking back constantly, you start to look forward. Your attention moves toward your growth, your responsibilities, and your connection with Allah. This shift does not come from forcing yourself to forget. It comes from naturally moving toward what benefits you. Another important aspect is that your expectations begin to adjust. You no longer expect the situation to become what you once hoped for. You accept it for what it is. This acceptance removes the tension between expectation and reality, and that tension is often what keeps attachment strong. You may also notice a sense of calm where there was once restlessness. The mind becomes quieter. The heart feels more stable. This calmness is not because everything is perfect, but because you have understood enough to move forward without resistance. There is also growth in your emotional strength. You realize that you can feel deeply without being controlled by those feelings. You learn to carry your emotions with balance. This strength makes future experiences easier to handle. Your trust in Allah becomes clearer through this process. You begin to see that what you went through had a purpose. Even if it was difficult, it contributed to your understanding and your growth. This perspective changes how you view the entire experience. Another sign that the lesson has settled is the absence of urgency. You no longer feel the need to act on every thought or feeling. You can observe them without reacting immediately. This ability creates space between you and your emotions, allowing you to remain steady. You also become more aware of your own needs. You understand what brings you peace and what does not. This awareness helps you make better choices moving forward. It prevents you from entering situations that would repeat the same pattern. There may still be moments where the past comes to mind. This is normal, but those moments do not define your state anymore. They pass without creating the same impact. This is how you know that the attachment is no longer controlling you. The attachment softens not because you forced it to disappear, but because you understood what it was meant to teach you. The lesson becomes part of you, and the feeling loses its intensity because it has served its purpose. And when a person reaches this point, the heart becomes lighter. It is no longer tied to something that belongs to the past. It moves forward with clarity, with acceptance, and with a deeper understanding of itself. This is how true release happens. Not through pressure, not through denial, but through understanding. When the lesson settles, the heart follows. And what once felt heavy becomes something you can carry with ease or leave behind completely. Sometimes the heart holds on because it hasn't fully understood what it was meant to learn. What feels heavy is not always meant to stay, but it remains until clarity replaces confusion. What you experienced was not without purpose. Every thought, every feeling, every moment of reflection carried a lesson designed for your growth. Not to keep you stuck, but to prepare you to move forward with awareness. When you begin to understand what Allah is showing you, something within you changes. The attachment loses its intensity, the questions become quieter, and your focus returns to what truly matters. You don't have to force yourself to forget. When the lesson becomes clear, the heart naturally releases what no longer belongs. So trust what you are being shown. Trust what you are being taught. Because what is meant for you will never require you to hold on to confusion. It will come with clarity, with peace, and with a heart that no longer struggles to let go.